right, Ford Expedition Timberline. Let's go for a drive, shall we? While on the surface it may seem that the Timberline is exclusively kind of catered towards the off-road capabilities in a 3-row, 7-passenger SUV, just a massive vehicle, just under 6,000 pounds here, you'd be wrong. That's not all that it is, because it's a little bit of a sleeper. Let's start out from a dig here and see what we can do. Actually, we'll put it in sport mode. We do have a number of drive modes here. We have sport mode, we have eco mode, which kind of lightens up the throttle mapping a little bit, so it kind of encourages you to get a little bit more fuel economy out of it. We've got normal, slippery for kind of rainy conditions, sand for loose surface, and then mud and ruts for kind of the bumpier stuff. Now I didn't take it off-road a lot. I found myself on a back service road, so that's why it's absolutely disgusting. But let's stick it in sport mode, mat it, see how she does. Wow. Lots of noise, a ton of noise. Just a swell of torque. Can really feel the turbo spool up off the line there especially. So 440 horsepower and 510 pound-feet of torque. Even when propelling a 5,800 pound SUV down the road, it is quick, okay? So not all of the Expeditions get the EcoBoost V6 in this tune. They do come, the lower tier models come with about 380 horsepower versus 440 here. So it's a big step up. So this is somewhere in between the base model Expedition power output and the Raptor. Not the Raptor R, but the EcoBoost Raptor's V6 and tune. I don't know if the Raptor actually uses different turbos. That's a whole other conversation. Of course, it's also paired with Ford's 10-speed here, which in sport mode, we can see on the gauge cluster here, it's holding the revs quite nicely. Throttle mapping gets very twitchy, and we're able to get that peak torque at 2,250 RPM. So it's really low down there. As you can see on that launch, it took a second off the line, but then boom, turbos light up and it just goes very fast. I mean, as far as the driving experience goes, it's not so isolated from the road, and I can appreciate that. One thing though, no paddle shifters here. No paddle shifters here, which is disappointing. Now, that's not to say we can't shift manually, but it's a little bit of an odd system. I would never use it. You guys tell me. You hit this M button in the center here, and then you just have 2 buttons for down a gear and up a gear. So it would be useful on the trail for sure. And I guess that's really what it's used for. It's mainly utilitarian and not performance. So I get that. There's less clutter here, and of course, headlights are down here on the left. Electric assisted power steering, of course, here. Not the greatest. I'm not in love with the steering, if I'm honest. It firms up just a little bit in sport mode, but there's not much feel. I mean, this isn't like a handling, performance-oriented SUV, but wow. I mean, I'm just absolutely blown away with how quick this is. This is such a sleeper. The fact that this isn't the Stealth Performance Edition, which is Ford's other way of speccing this truck with this EcoBoost V6 in this tune with this much torque, the fact that this isn't that is crazy. It does not look like this vehicle has no business being this quick. It feels much quicker than the Armada I drove with the big V8, and that just goes to show how versatile this EcoBoost engine is. I do like the 10-speed gearbox too. It shifts a lot, and sometimes around first or second gear I can feel it shift, but but that's where the gripes end. That's it. I can feel it. If that's the worst, that's pretty damn good in my books. We do get different shocks here. We get off-road specific shocks. You are not able to spec the adaptive suspension here. So that's kind of the biggest change, in my opinion, of what differentiates this from the standard and even like the limited and the platinum. And so it's not quite, I would imagine, as comfortable here as it could be with adaptive suspension, but it still rides nice. Average here is 21 miles per gallon or 13.5 liters per 100 kilometers. But if you're in normal mode or eco, by 60 kilometers an hour or 40 miles per hour, you'll be in 7th gear, 6th or 7th gear. Here we are, 60 kilometers an hour, and we're in 8th gear, turning 1100 RPM. So even with that RPM, I would have expected a little bit better fuel economy, but all things considered, really big truck. It's lifted. It doesn't have the greatest coefficient of drag. I think it looks great. It looks a little bit different from the standard Expedition. I'll hop out in a sec. I'll show you guys kind of all the exterior differences. It's been optioned, this one as tested, has been optioned with the 15.5-inch touchscreen display here with Sync 4A, which is basically just Ford's kind of infotainment software here. And then of course the 12.4-inch digital gauge cluster here. It looks great. The only gripe I have with it, as we pass a two-door R34 Skyline. Sorry, I had to pause for that. I own one in white, that's why. So one downside with the digital gauge cluster is I'm not actually able to bring my active navigation, like a full map, into the gauge cluster. Such a first world problem, and that's just a thing that a lot of luxury cars are beginning to do now. But because this screen is so big, it's not necessary. I really like how this works. So basically, even though I have my Android Auto, or you could have Apple CarPlay, of course, on the top here, down here, I also have my maps, so I can see what street I'm on still, and then if I click on maps, it'll just bring that up to the top. And then my music is still down here in the corner, and then I can hit play, pause, next song, and everything. And of course, I can do that here on the steering wheel too. One thing I will note, of course, with a big digital display like this, all of your HVAC, I shouldn't say all of it, not all of it. You can still hit your temperature from here. I can turn my heated steering wheel on or off. But if I want to change where the air is going and a few of the other options here for climate control, I do need to bring up the menu. So for my heated and cooled seats, which I do get here, it brings up this menu here, and then it will disappear if I haven't touched it in a couple seconds. All right, so just walking around the Timberline here. Got this cool mountain logo here, triple mountain logo, the kind of Timberline logo there embossed on the front bumper. We've of course got these active orange accents, which I think look really great against the metallic forged green, which I'm just in love with this color. Not while it's so filthy, sorry you guys, but I've been doing things the truck's meant to do. Of course, the orange tow hooks here, and of course the steel skid plates you guys can see there that are brought over from the Raptor. It's got higher ground clearance, 10.6 inches of ground clearance here, and it's got a wider track width from the standard truck. So this one's fitted with 18s, of course, because we've got these giant Wrangler Goodyear tires, really knobby, really good. I suppose you could air them down if you really wanted to, not really necessary. And then we've got the black grille here with the big Ford emblem, of course LED running lights and LED fog lights we can see here. Back seats here, legroom is insane. I mean, this goes for really any 3-row, almost everywhere. Leather trimmed surfaces everywhere here on the top. Basically anywhere there's this active orange stitching, we've got leather. These seats, you guys, are amazing. I am in love with these seats. Ford makes some of the most comfortable seats as I've come to find out. And then of course we have our digital display there and the leather wrapped steering wheel. And something small I noticed when you open the door here, check this out. On the vents here that of course channel air into the doors here, there's just little embossed kind of artwork here that shows the Expedition in the city on one side, and then out in the forest, in the wilderness, just kind of showing the two, to juxtapose the two scenarios that you could find yourself in the Expedition. I love it. I think it's just a small touch, totally unnecessary, but you can tell the team at Ford was actually putting some thought into it, into the looks of the cabin and the feel, which is great. The Timberline edition gives us a proper 2-speed transfer case, so we can either manually switch between automatic, 4 automatic, so it'll basically decide where to send the torque and whether to go 4 high or 4 low, or we can manually go to 4 high or 4 low, or we can manually switch back to 2-wheel drive. And then per the drive modes, like sport is 4-wheel drive, and if we go to eco or normal, of course it goes back to rear-wheel drive. Base with the Timberline is the electronically controlled active rear differential. So we do have a locking rear differential, which can be incredibly helpful. It comes with a 12-speaker Bang & Olufsen sound system with a subwoofer, and you also are not able to spec the 22-speaker Bang & Olufsen sound system here, which I find strange. For $89,000 Canadian, I would expect that you'd be able to spec the top-tier sound system, but you're not able to. You're also not able to spec massage seats in the Timberline, which, I mean, to me makes sense, but it just seems odd for the price point that you wouldn't just be able to just stack it up, you know? $95,000 probably with everything in it would be. It does basically everything. It's got the power retracting rear seats, the third rows recline, which is awesome. It's got a bunch of storage. This center console is huge, and you can get different inserts here. It's got hill descent control, of course, standard safety features. The pedal box, and this is something that Ford introduced, as far as I'm concerned, on the second generation Ford GT, I guess third generation, if you want to count the original Le Mans car, but the second generation Ford GT, basically the entire dash, like the steering wheel and the pedals would move together, I believe. At the very least, the pedals would forward and back. So this does the same thing. It's really cool. Not many vehicles that I've driven in the past year or even 2 years have that, if any. It's like, okay, hey, I need the 3 rows. That's like first on my checklist. Then down below, hey, I want to bring extra people. I want to bring as many people as possible to share the experience of going out and, you know, whether you want to go camping and there's a big trail in front of you that you need to pass, or some rocks or anything like that, some unknown territory, then that's what this is for, kind of on top of that. So thank you guys so much for watching. This has been the Expedition Timberline. See you guys next time.